Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West. Burning Shores is probably its full title. It's the fourth piece of exclusive PlayStation 5 media we've had since the platform's launch. I'm not counting Astro's Playroom. So exciting stuff. I don't see enough exclusive games for the platform as far as I'm concerned, and having a piece of DLC lodged right on top of one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 5 was a real cherry on top. Seeing the trailer and the media around the release of this DLC got me super hyped, so I went straight to it, but there is a caveat. You have to have finished that main campaign within Forbidden West. I was in a Twitter conversation, shall we say, with what's called an Xbot, and they were talking about the compulsory amount of time you have to put in to access the DLC, and I was like, you've never played a Monster Hunter game, have you, you absolute idiot? We're going to look at it first, and with that compulsory amount of playthrough that you need to put in, there is a certain aspect to it that very much surprised me. One of the things I want to point out is this hub or main central village within the new map section, much more richly populated, vivid colours. They haven't upped the engine or the capacity of what we're looking at on base game with this DLC to any noticeable degree, and every square inch of this footage is in the game's quality mode, and I saw nothing but peak performance. Obviously 30 frames per second, but 4K and these stunning colours and visuals, it does carry over. It is probably the best looking thing on a PlayStation 5 currently. And that's because it's an exclusive open world DLC. They've really pushed the boat out with some of these visuals. I want to talk about the flyer very quickly. I was about 3/4 of the way through the main campaign on installation of Burning Shores. I was like, just a little bit more to do, then I can access that material. And what happens is there's a quest called Gemini, which comes up at about rank 30. I did it at rank 27, like a complete plum, and it was very difficult and frustrating. We'll get to that in a second. But there's only 2 more main missions after Gemini, and then it's campaign over. You really don't get the opportunity to enjoy that flyer freedom much. I was very surprised they didn't put it in earlier. The Raptor mount is earlier. That flyer opens up everything, really ups the ante on what you're looking at as a game model, because everywhere it becomes accessible, a bit more easy. You haven't got to do the dangerous traversal if you haven't fast traveled somewhere. Because it was so predominant with the advertising for base game on every cover, it's on the cover of the actual box, it's on your screensaver when you have your icon up, massive bird, Aloy at the front. I think they used it as a hook to get people to play that actual campaign at least 80% through before introducing it. I don't know if that was a good idea or not. If you play Ark and you're into pterodactyl flight, I was miffed at how long they held that back. It was not needed. I also had the worst time with that campaign because I was rushing it and because I wanted to get to the Shores DLC and get the content out as quickly as I could. I wasn't savouring any side quests, and everything seemed to put me inside a building in a puzzle that required stone turning. What I mean is, a lot of the puzzles in Horizon, you don't have to use your brain, you just have to keep looking for some annoying piece of crap somewhere, and that just pads out. They'll say, okay, now you've got to find another annoying piece of crap, and turning over or going around all these corners and looking in every dark, dank, goddamn alcove for something gets very boring if you're trying to speed run a campaign. That lava though, my god, when you get to the DLC, initially you meet up with your special friend, let's say, we'll get to that in a minute. She looks up at this tower and goes, we've got to get to the top of that to sort out this ray gun thing. And when you look at it, you just think, oh my god, there's going to be so many of those yellow, grab-on, Assassin's Creed, but worse traversal sections, and they are just too annoying. They haven't really studied the intricacies of a third-person puzzle with that sort of movement model. You fall off ledges, you pick things up wrong, it feels clunky and horrible, and you're forced into loads of it. The original Horizon Zero Dawn's strength was in open, expansive, almost savannah-like gameplay, with watching these monsters and creatures interact with each other and sort of poking them and seeing how the economy works with their survival, the repairing everything. At no point did you request to be put down a corridor and start a painful process that this game calls its puzzle sections. Let's talk about the indigenous life and what you're introduced to when you sort of slap down on the burning shore. Well, there's no new major monsters that stand out from the base game. There's a few sort of high-end equivalents that you will see, but everything is as it was in the original. There are obviously a few new weapons and outfits and buffs and coils, perks, that sort of thing, but nothing at the start that says, oh, by the way, you've just spent 16 quid on some new content. There is a bit more destructive. They do sort of push explosive and crumble mechanics a bit more. There's a section coming up here where I push this hippopotami into a sort of arced building, and the dissipation on the rock as it comes down the hill, you're like, wow, yeah, I'm certainly playing this game on a PlayStation 5. That also becomes clear in the sky and skyboxes and the clouds, the way that they're almost watercolor-like beautiful. Absolute excellence in the light, rays, sun coming through, even the reflections. I've just produced the video on top ray tracing, and there's none in this at all, and they cope quite well with mimicking what is being reflected. Also, day and night transitions, very smooth, and a lot of change in the visuals with the game at night time with neons and lights. They still have that issue with the bloom on the blue light, but there is a bit of a show stealer, and I was moaning about no new massive monsters to deal with, but there's a toad, and my god, they're fascinating to me. They're overused and they're kind of everywhere at the front end, but these things are horrifying. We'll get into what they do to you in a second. So I mentioned it earlier about the game wanting to take you out of that beautiful open world and stick you into very linear, dark, uninteresting, almost dungeon-like puzzle areas. The DLC does it constantly. I cannot imagine the conversation around the developer table where, like, this world we've made for our audience is excellent, and then someone puts their hands up and says, can we just send them down a 45-minute quest, taking them away from all of that hard work we've done, and just really use the assets from the previous game in some mundane puzzles? Let's even put them back to back. And the entire room clapped and said, what a brilliant idea. What are they thinking up there at Guerrilla Games?
Wanderer.
Welcome, my chosen. You have wandered, you have suffered, but you are lost no more. For I have found you.
It got really bad with the review. I would stand outside tunnels and doorways and vaults and think, is it going to take me down to like a 2-hour puzzle quest that's going to result in nothing but dark corridors and reuse assets? Even some of the compulsory boss fights are put in these scenarios, and I cannot tell you, the relief, it's like Shawshank Redemption, seeing the daylight at the end of a corridor and the world coming back to you. I'm like, oh man, I've got my game back. Thank you so much.
Okay, transmitter should be somewhere nearby. Big statue looks promising.
Those machines are in our way. Gotta clear them out.
There's also something else that will get to you. If you're an avid Monster Hunter player, you know about this. There's no camera lock on to what you're fighting, which is fine. I don't mind it. It means you've got to work a bit, keep the camera on them manually. What that means is sometimes you'll be running into something that you can't see because you're looking behind you for attacks that are coming in that you've got to avoid. So you need a sort of clear-ish pathway. You need to sort of be able to negate the area that you're fighting in. There is a bit of rock, a bit of wood, a bit of stone, a gap, a puddle that will stop you dead. It happens so much. You end up going into a jump. You also have to click in the run, then hit square, which instigates sometimes your stealth duck to get a slide. So it's just unbelievably breakingly frustrating. I nearly lost it a couple of times because they've gone overboard with these small bits of furniture within these arenas just to make the game look good and nice, but they should have made these combat arenas a little less sticky. Monster Hunter gets it right. It's not going to get you caught on a piece of vine whilst you're running away from something that can insta-kill you. It's another thing is some of the attacks can knock you clean out. So it's a war just getting around when fighting with this game. We're looking at the photo mode. It is absolutely amazing. It's even got a precision slow-mo version of the normal camera pan, so I get looked after. Okay, we're at the toad. The toad, He's my boy. He's a lot of fun to fight.
Here's to the hunt!
Introduces like tiny flying mech enemies that the token spawn, and they're in these little like egg pods. It's really cool that they've taken a blatant different angle with some of the monsters, but it's not enough. They should have had a lot more, and even flyer variation and flyer combat. That sunwing thing you fly can't hurt anything. You have to jump off in the slow-mo time, Breath of the Wild style, and try and shoot something in midair. You can also tease everything. You can take them out of the arenas or get them stuck in dead ends or cause them to be at the end of an alley. They haven't really tested. I know I've moaned about closed arenas and now I'm moaning about open ones, but it's just a little bit annoying how obvious some of those exploits are. Let's talk about the relationships with the NPCs, particularly the colleague that you have with you constantly, right? Giving you one-liners and encouragement through the whole game. That doesn't get annoying after the first 6 minutes. Here's the thing. You see, there is a romance sort of hinted at. You can sense it with the dialogue. We've had the asexualness of Aloy drummed into us over the years that it feels super weird and forced a little bit, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of major hints from either parties that what happens. It's not a huge twist, and anybody wanting to explore that dialogue wheel can. We saw it in Mass Effect, but it just feels like they whacked it in to spice up what really is become one of the unrock-and-rollest female protagonists on Earth. I'm sorry to say that to you, Aloy, but Bayonetta, she is not recently discussed in the top female protagonist video. But it's a sign of the times, and Aloy's certainly a more accessible character. Females have had a bit of a weird ride with video games and their image. This is very down to earth, but too damn down to earth. I'm not asking for bikini DLC. You guys know what I'm talking about. Am I happy with this DLC? To a certain extent I am. For the money, it wasn't extortionate and there is quite a lot of content. I just wanted more crazy creatures, you know, me. And would I recommend this as a pack? Yes. They'll bowl it all in as a singular purchase at some point before the end of the year, and that's the way forward. I have of course been the ray of sunshine that is Couch Coop. I will see you all down there.